Thank you, Mr. Rao, and good morning to all the attendees. Our subject today is on execution and how to simplify execution of all the strategies that get built in an organization. It's no secret that when organizations build strategy, there is an intent to improve something, to either look at higher profitability or reduce costs or improve sales or productivity and so on and so forth. And a lot of work goes into building those strategies. But it's equally true that when it's time to roll that strategy out on the field, people almost invariably end up keep doing what they were doing in the past, and it becomes really difficult to start implementing the new ideas or the new thoughts or the new things that may have been thought about in the strategy. And that's the reason why we feel this is a critical component of being successful in your businesses. And that's the reason we built this content for the webinar. Before I get into the main content, I just want to speak a little bit, maybe a couple of minutes, about the company I represent. We're a company that calls ourselves Strat to Results, and that's short for Strategy to Results. And one of the core areas, therefore, that we work on is execution. We also found that a number of the projects that we did, that most of our clients are looking for excellence in sales execution. Sales execution in itself doesn't mean that you simply create a great, a large number of very well trained and well qualified salespeople. It also means that you need to have a head to it, which is a good solid sales operation in the background. That's a data-based or an information-centric approach to looking at what are the core areas of execution that you need to work on. And so the second part that we focus greatly on is sales operations. In the process of working on our sales operations and sales execution opportunities, we've come across 3 or 4 areas that some of our clients often ask us to work on, and these are on the sales side. They're down here. One of those is most of the salespeople or at least inexperienced salespeople, end up selling transactionally. They're really looking at pricing and features and functionality and technical comparisons with competition, and they don't necessarily explore what are the opportunities around the solution that the customer is looking at. And so many of our clients say, please help our salespeople have the conversations that can help create value around the point solution that the client is looking for. The second place that people leave a lot of money on the table is in not negotiating effectively, and so we work with our clients on helping them not just negotiate a price, but also to negotiate the the overall value of the deal, so that they don't leave money behind on the table. On the execution side, because it's large numbers of people who are working together, we found that many times frontline managers are where the entire exercise gets stuck, because they are not necessarily that experienced with managing people and managing complexity. And so we've introduced a couple of areas, a couple of things we do in that area, from a pure classroom intervention plus coaching and follow through kind of long tail solutions on the fundamentals of management as well as the fundamentals of leadership. We've had some success in most of these areas. I just want to share with you how we are able to drive nonlinear growth. We have been working now for nearly 3 years with a automation major in the electrical industry, and they are in the chain that supplies into the manufacturing industry, and you know how manufacturing has been for some time now, and so their business wasn't growing very rapidly. We used our execution modules to work with them and have helped them grow their revenues 2 times of market in terms of percentage now for 3 years. So it's really worked for this group. For Europe's largest engineering company, we did a project for about 200 to 300 days in which we helped their help their workforce change their culture from an internally focused one to a customer focused one. And that was part of a large project. And the net outcome of that has been that in 2 years they've been able to move the net promoter score, for their company from 19 now to in fact 57. That's the latest number that's coming. 43 was last year. So there's been some good significant results there as well. We also work with a large tier one auto component manufacturer. It's a US player who has 5 production units across the world. One of them is in India. And the big challenge that they had was, how viable is their operation in India? It was the per employee productivity was not high, the profitability was not high, quality issues were the highest over here. And I think the leader of the unit felt that first let's try and establish our viability in the Indian market. And so we worked with them on improving their four-wall profits from what they were to at least basically what the global norm for profitability was, so that the existential question was not asked again. And there we were pretty successful in doing that as well. Now, having spoken a little bit about the company, I just want to jump back into the core of the content that we have today. Look, at the end of the day, we're all paid to produce results, whether our customers are paying us or our company is paying us. And there are roughly, 2 areas that you can drive results in by decisions that are taken at an executive level, and these are typical resource type decisions. So they're decisions on profit and loss related issues, policies, talent acquisition, talent decisions, mergers and acquisitions, those kind of things. So there's a few people who are making these decisions at the top. And if you have the position, the authority, the resources, you can sort of have a discussion and make this decision. It doesn't involve a lot of people. But when you start looking at some other changes or results that you want in some other areas, like compliance or with a policy or usage of some kind of technology or customer partner relations, those kind of areas, it's not enough to just communicate saying this is the strategic direction and starting tomorrow all of us need to start doing this. That's pretty tough because it requires it's behavioral, and it's harder to get behavioral change in place of get employee-driven results, because it requires not just focus. You can give focus for a short period of time, but it requires sustained focus over a period of time. It requires employees who are bought into the idea. So that's why I'm saying engagement. And the third thing it requires is discipline. And very often organizations are either not able to focus on what's most important to them and try to do everything, or they have good focus, but the employees don't buy into the story, and therefore, even though you've built your strategies around your new focus, they don't get done. And very often, even if you have focus and engagement, organizations seldom have a discipline to make sure that what they said they would do is what they actually do. And that's the reason why behavior-based strategies or employee-driven results are often far more difficult to achieve than decisions that just involve a few people and a signature by somebody who's in a position of authority. So we're going to explore the employee-driven side of things, because eventually many of the executive-driven decisions that get made, whether it's, let's say, a merger and an acquisition, we acquire another company. Eventually, it's the behavior of the people on the ground that's going to determine whether the acquisition and the merger, whatever it may have been, is successful in business terms. So we are going to focus on the employee side of things. To achieve results, companies will always organize. And this is a very traditional org structure. It's not necessary that all companies are like this, but most are. There are a few people at the top, and then as you come further down, there's more and more people that at various decision-making and execution levels. Now, companies tend to invest a great deal on the strategy vectors, which are on the left-hand side of this pyramid. Strategy gets made at the top, the planning happens at, somewhere near the top, the goal setting happens in the middle, the metrics are set in the middle, compensation models and communications about what the changes are at different levels or what the new strategies are things that companies invest in a great deal. There's no secret that if there's a new goal, then everybody at the top of the company will communicate it in any which way that they possibly can. You can have company meetings, you can have company emails, you can have townhouses, you can have whatever, employee meets, etc. And so companies do tend to invest a great deal in this in the early part of any fiscal year. Unfortunately, where they don't, where they don't invest in a great deal is what you see on the right-hand side. You may have a new strategy, but are people clear about what that strategy means? Right? If they're clear about that strategy and what it means, do they know what it means that they should do? What are the things they should do? Because unless they're clear about what the goal is and bought into it, and unless they're clear about what it translates to in terms of their day-to-day work, you're not going to get the commitment and accountability that you need from the teams. And then subsequently, of course, comes the issue of when they do have clarity and they're able to translate what they're supposed to do, and they begin to take accountability for those things. People start taking enablement. People start believing that they're more enabled, and this is where real engagement comes in, because they are making the decisions on what the results should be. And even if they're not, then at least they're making a decision for themselves on what needs to be done to achieve their part of what the result means. Because at the end of the day, just because as leaders you know what needs to be done, it doesn't mean that people on the front line either know it or that they will do it. And that's usually the biggest gap in bringing strategies to life. There's a lot of thought and planning that goes into building the strategy, but we're not able to land it successfully with the people who are supposed to execute it. So just organizing for results is not good enough. Just investing on the harder side of things, the structured side of things, is not good enough. It's important to invest on the people side as well. Now, this is very startling what you see out here. I mean, this is a result of a survey that was done in the United States with thousands of white-collar workers, people like us, in managerial jobs, to find out just how much they knew about the goals of their organization and how much they had bought into them. The number of people, if I'm not wrong, I think about 9,000 white-collar employees were surveyed in this survey by the Harris Interactive Group, which is a pretty famous organization when it comes to doing market surveys. The percentage of employees who could articulate their organization's most important goals was just 15 out of 100. Only 15 out of 100 people could really clearly articulate, this is my organization's main goal. The percentage of employees who know what are the key metrics of their business, 1 in 10. Oh, sorry, in fact, 1 in 10. That's 10% of people. 10 out of 100 people knew what are the key metrics. What does the business measure itself on? And only 49% people said that they spent, or rather, people said they spend only 49% of their time working on their most important goals, which basically indicates that 51% of the time they're either doing nothing, or they're doing something that's just everyday stuff, just things that keep coming at your head. There were actually just there were only in this poll there were a number of metrics. Another one that I can recall is only 1 in 5 people said that they felt enthusiastic about the most important goals of their organization. Now, can you imagine how much of the human capital of an organization, in pure percentage terms, is not being utilized to achieve its most important goals? It's absolutely startling to look at this. Now, when we work with our clients directly one-on-one, we also do some of these. We also collect some of these metrics from the organizations, and let me tell you, the numbers are not very different. I'm not sharing them with you because they are client confidential, and each of the numbers is specific to an organization, but the numbers are in about the same ballpark. The number of people who are clear about the organization's goals, people who know what the metrics are, people who feel enthused are all around the 20% kind of a mark. So this is not an issue that pertains only to the US market. It's very true in our Indian market and across industries and across levels in an organization. It's really quite amazing when you do the cuts and see what percentage of the top management of an organization is 100% clear about what its number one goal is. Uh, you ask 10 people in the top management of an organization, what's the number one goal? You should get one answer. You'll probably get 6, 7, 8, maybe even 10, and that's that's consistent across the board. Now, what causes this? Right? There's a lot of speculation about what may be the reason why people are not clear about their goals, or why they don't feel enthused about their goals. And the truth of the matter, rather surprisingly, is it really required no research at all, because it's the whirlwind, it's the day job, the urgent stuff. We go to 5 meetings in a day, we respond to 20 emails in a day. We have 2 or 3 emergencies driven by customers or employees who want to quit or whatever it is. And that's what we end up spending a large proportion of our day dealing with. Unfortunately, the challenge is that these kind of things are urgent and they need to be dealt with immediately, and so they're not going to go away. So how do you deal with that? Where do you find time for the things that are important? In other words, your new strategies, your new growth plans, all the new things that you want people to do. It becomes a real challenge. So it's the whirlwind that that's the main blocker. Now, great execution it may be a victim today of the whirlwind, but let's not forget the whirlwind is not vanishing. So great execution will always happen in spite of the whirlwind, and it's not going to happen by saying let's do something to get rid of the whirlwind, because we can't. The day job isn't going to go away. So let's have a look at some ways in which we could do this. But before that, I'd said that it's about 3 things. Great execution is about focus on a few things that you have to do, on employees that buy into what your focus area is, and then an organization that demonstrates the discipline to do what they have said they will do. And we normally just split this quadrant into 4 areas. If you have a high level of focus, but employees that are not that engaged, a high level of focus and a high level of discipline, but disengaged employees, you'll probably get incremental results. Your 5%, 7%, 8% growth, 2% or 3%, depending on what industry you're in. That's because you have a sharp focus and you have a great discipline to chase after people. Most organizations will fall into this space. Lots of focus, lots of discipline, and lots of soldiers who will do what you tell them to do, because if they don't do it, then you'll beat them up. Right? They're not really fully engaged in this. This part of the box is where you don't have focus, don't have engagement in the employees, and don't have discipline, and there's no wonder then you're probably going to get no results here at all. Right? There are organizations where you find that the focus is not that high, but there's a high level of enthusiasm amongst the employees, and they are really running it on discipline. They're really running everything on adrenaline. There's no focus, there's no discipline. You have highly engaged employees, you'll probably get short-term results. That's the reason you'll find that many times, you have teams that will do a great job in one quarter for some reason that they can't say. And then the next quarter, the same team doesn't do a good job, and they can't say why they didn't do a good job again. Because there's no focus, no discipline. It's just the adrenaline that they've been running on. However, if you have a high focus, a high level of discipline, and employees that believe in the goals that you've taken, that's likely to generate sustained superior performance. With superior, obviously, is better than the better than normal, better than most others, and sustained is over a period of time, and that's what everybody would ideally like. We find most organizations live in one of these 3 areas, or most teams live in one of these 3 areas, whereas everybody really needs to be heading in this direction. So our take is that if you have the focus, employees that are bought into what you're focused on, and a discipline in the organization to follow up on that focus, then you're likely to get results. Let's discuss focus a little bit. Right? I think one of the things that one of the things that's happening nowadays is we live in a world where there's so much that's vying for our attention. It becomes very difficult to really pick on 1 or 2 things that are that are critically important to our business. But if we want to deliver a high quality of execution in some area, then one of the questions that must be answered is, what's our organization's must-win battle? And how do we contribute? Well, how do we contribute comes a little bit later. That's the engagement part. But what's our organization's must-win battle? In other words, what's the one battle that I must win this year? That if I didn't win, then anything else I achieve really doesn't matter that much. Right? And I take some examples very often. One of those examples is Indigo Airlines. We all know Indigo is famous for on time, but that doesn't mean that other things that they have to deal with on an everyday basis, like for instance, passenger safety or ground handling or baggage handling or ground staff or maintenance, those things are not things that they have to do just because they're worried about taking their planes off on time. But I can tell you one thing, while they do a good job with everything, the one thing in that airline that they must do, because if they don't do that, then anything else they do doesn't matter, is to make sure that their planes take off on time. And that's the kind of thing that that a must-win battle is. It's not as though planes taking off on time is not important for other people. It is, but it's just another one of those things. For Indigo, it's the most important thing. It's the must-win battle, while the other things still need to be done. So they put an inordinate amount of focus on that, as a result of which they get an inordinately good result, which is on-time performance. As a result of which they have, they have #1 passenger market share in this country for the last 6 years of the 10 years of their existence. Because passengers travel by air to get from point A to point B quickly. That's why they spend all that money. And the airline understands that and says, therefore, we need to get you from point A to point B on time. That's how focused they are. We'll talk about it more about it a little bit later. Let me just, let me just expand on this a little bit. Okay, I have a little bit of a, yeah, okay. So how many must-win battles should an organization take? Let's say a must-win battle is one of the big rocks that we want to move. There are lots of little things that we want to do, but the big rock that we want to move is, how many should there be? Conventional wisdom or the pressures of day-to-day life will say there are quite a few of them. You may have up to 7, 8, 9, or 10. But the law of diminishing returns is also very much alive. And the law of diminishing returns says that if you take anything more than 3, beyond 3, you start getting diminishing returns. You don't really get the returns that you want. So you are only going to get incremental results, which basically takes you into that box which says, here's a team that's focused and a team that's disciplined. Maybe not that focused, it's definitely disciplined. But if you want outstanding results, then you should not be looking at taking anything more than 2 to 3 big rocks. Now, taking 2 to 3 big rocks does not mean that all the other things that you do become unimportant. They don't. It's just that these 2 to 3 things are far more important than the other 8 or 10 things that you're trying to do, right? And so one of the fundamentals of achieving excellence in execution is to have clarity about what are you going to excel at. What's that one thing that that we're going to put a great deal of energy behind to excel at? So we say you should not take more than 2 or 3. Ideally, your must-win battle should be 1. And then supporting that must-win battle, there should be 2 or 3 big rocks that the entire organization can put its energy behind. Yeah. So, what are the kind of things that you look for when you're trying to create big rocks? Well, there's a million things that you want to move. There could be growth-related things. There could be efficiency, market share, productivity, revenue, cost reduction. There's a million things that there's a million things that a million areas that you could be looking at to figure out what your big rocks should be, right? A great way of looking at it is to say, what are the 20% things out of this huge list of things that I have to do, all of which seem equally important? What are the top 20%, the 2 or 3 things out of 10 that I need to do that will make 80% of the impact? So this is basically the good old Pareto principle. I have a lot of things to do. What are the 20% things that are going to make 80% of the impact? I'm not saying that all of the things that I have to do are important or more important or less important. I'm just saying which 20% will make 80% of the impact. It's a hard choice to make, but it's a choice that needs to be made. And then based on that, what's the one thing out of the 2 or 3 things that we picked out? What's the one thing that's that's most important? That's how you could pick out the must-win battle for your organization, for your team, or for your business unit, whichever level you want to run this at. I use the example of Indigo, but here's another great example of an incident that happened in the history of one of the most successful contemporary companies where exactly such a thing was done. This is a picture of Steve Jobs, and this is 1997 when Apple was really struggling, and they didn't know, they were trying to do too many things, and their management team went up into what's known as a Think Week, and they started discussing what are the few things that they need to do. And the managers came back to Jobs and said, here are the 25 or 30 great products that we're working on right now. And that's when he made this famous statement. He said, stop, this is crazy. He just patted down to a whiteboard and drew a 2x2 grid and said, we sell to consumers and to professionals. And he said, we sell desktop machines and portable machines. He said, please come up with one product in each of these boxes. One for consumer computing, desktop, and one for consumer portable, one for professional desktop, and one for professional portable. And he said, whatever you create me 4 products that are industry defining. And they started with the iPod, then it went on to the iPhone, the iMac, and the iPad. Nowadays, with the iPhone being what it is, perhaps the iPod is not that relevant anymore, and that's the reason that box is open, which is the mobile consumer space. And that's where they're trying to now work on one product, which they come up with. Even there, they're focusing on 2 or 3 things. They're focusing on the watch, which seems to be now a runaway winner, and that's probably where they're going to stay. They're also focusing on some other technologies, with glass and what you can view on glass and stuff like that. So this is the classic example of how a company said, stop, don't do too many things. More does not mean more. Doing too many things means less of a result. In this case, doing less means more. We create fewer products and create a huge impact. And you can see, since then what the results for Apple have been. When you do state your big rocks, I would say here's a simple model that you can use, but state them very clearly. Please state clearly what's the action is, what's the action you want to take, what is the subject of that action, in other words, on what do you want to take that action, where are you right now in terms of value, where do you want to be, and by when do you want to get there, right? So here's just some examples of how simply stated statements are. So let's have a look at 1 or 2 of them. What's the action here? Increase. What do you want to increase? Profitability. What's your starting value? 4%. What's the ending value you want? 6%. By when do you want it? Date, right? Or you take something like this. Action is improve. What do you want to improve? Per employee productivity. From what do you want to improve it? From 5 crores. To what do you want to take it? 6 crores. By when do you want to improve it? March 2018. You see, this doesn't leave any confusion in anybody's mind about what you're trying to do, what is your subject on which you're trying to do it, where are you right now, where do you want to go, and by when do you want to get there. And if you can get a good solid statement that rallies people around, that makes them feel good about trying to achieve that goal, then that that automatically becomes a point of gravitas where people get gravitated towards statements like that. I mean, amongst these, perhaps this is the most likely to attract people. Grow revenue by 2x of market by September 2017. It's not a number in crores of rupees or millions of dollars, right? But it's definitely an aspirational thing. People like to be connected with a goal that says, listen, where I go to work is a worthwhile place to go because we are going to grow our market, we are going to grow our revenues 2 times of what the market is growing. I feel proud of being a team like that, right? So the more we can, the more we can engage people in the statement itself, the more likely it is to be successful. Let's not forget the importance of stating something like this. I think the other thing that we need to focus on with respect to big rocks, which are the goals that are trying to drive towards the organization's must-win battle, is that they must be aligned. So if you have an organizational goal up here, which we refer to as the must-win battle, then what is it that the leader is going to do? What are the 2 or 3 things? You remember we said 2 or 3 things is optimal. 8 or 10 is not optimal. What are the 2 or 3 things that the leader is going to focus on? And then underneath the leader, whatever is the organization structure, this is sales, this is finance, this is marketing, this is whatever. What are the 3 goals that they're going to take that directly contribute to this goal, which will eventually lead us to this goal. So it's important to make sure that we get that alignment by making sure that that the goals down the line are connected. They contribute to the goal above. They give line of sight to people down the line. People at the fifth level of the organization clearly know now that the goal they're carrying is finally going to deliver the organization's must-win battle. So people feel very connected in what they're doing on a day-to-day basis with what the big objective of the organization is. If you simply say, "Oh, we have to do 500 crores this year," what does what does a guy in packaging 5 levels down in the organization feel that he's contributing? I mean, what he does have, how is that connected to 500 crores of revenue that has to be achieved? But if you can show him a connection from top to bottom, you suddenly get people, being far more aligned and far more interested in the jobs that they're doing, and you start creating engagement right there. Now, that's the first step of engagement. When do people get engaged? I mean, when do people feel engaged? People feel engaged when they feel that whatever they're doing is contributing to a meaningful cause. That's when people get engaged. If they feel they're just contributing to something that the leader has come and said, "Okay, this year we will do something or the other," they neither have an emotional connection with it, nor do they know what to do. And if there's no emotional connection, there's no commitment. If there's no commitment, they will only do things because we push them around. And so it's important for us to start looking at the goal and saying, do people understand why they have the big rocks? Do people understand how they connect? Do they know what their contribution to it is going to be? And therefore, their big rocks need to be designed to connect with the must-win battle. But it's also scary, because people look at a big rock which might have a big bold goal attached to it, and they might say, "My God, this looks really big. How do we, how do we manage it?" And that's why we say that in the engagement phase, it's really important to break down the work. It's one thing to say what the goal is and expect people to do it. It's quite another to expect that they will know what needs to be done. And that very often is the cause of breaking down, because what they know is what they did last year. If they keep doing what they did last year, they will achieve what they achieved last year. If we have a nice big goal this year, then we should not just expect that people know what needs to be done. And therefore, it's important for leaders to get involved in breaking that work down, right? Because it's hard to move big rocks. We will only know whether we've achieved the result of the big rock at the end of a period, by which time it's too late to change what we have been doing throughout the quarter or throughout the half or throughout the year. We need to know much sooner. In fact, we need to know every week, right? People end up thinking, last year I achieved 5 crores in revenue by working 10 hours a day. This year they're asking me to achieve 7 crores of revenue, 7.5 crores of revenue. That means, I'll have to work 12 hours a day or 13 hours a day. And that's not possible. And so, all kinds of things happen. People miss numbers, or people start doing things that they shouldn't be doing to achieve those numbers. So it's that's why it becomes really critical to break that work down. So if you have a big rock, let's say, is like moving this huge big boulder, then your lever here is something that you can use to move that big rock with some level of predictability and some level of control. Because otherwise you just keep staring at that big rock, maybe pushing at it all day and not getting any kind of a result. So it's really important to say, how is this big rock going to move? And so let's explore that a little bit. For terminology's sake, I will use two terms. One is called lagging indicators or lag measures. The other one is called leading indicators or lead measures. The lag measures or lagging indicators are things that we get to know about after the fact. For instance, did we achieve our revenue at the end of the year or did we not? The leading indicators are the things that we figure out as we go along the way. For instance, am I doing the right things that will help me achieve my revenue goal at the end of the year? So leading indicators are the things that you do as you go along, and lagging indicators represent the result that we get. Lagging indicators are important because that's the end result that you want. But just knowing the lagging indicator doesn't help you achieve it. What helps you achieve it is knowing what you have to do to achieve that goal. And that's what the leading indicators are. So our big rocks are lagging indicators. They tell us what the result is. Our levers are leading indicators that tell us whether we are doing the right things to achieve the lagging indicator or not. Now, when we look at our levers, there are usually 4 areas that we should be concerned about. The first is it predictive that if I do this activity, it will help me achieve my goal? Right? Will it predict the achievement of our big rocks? The second is it actionable? It's one thing to say this will move my big rock, but if I can't do it, there's no point doing it. Is it controllable? In other words, it may be actionable, but by somebody else. It doesn't make any sense to take a lever that is controllable, but that is actionable, but is not controllable by me. I should have, or my team should have 80% of control or influence over, over the activity. And is it engaging or not? In other words, does it connect with the activity that I'm performing as my lever to the goal? Right. So predictive is, will it achieve it? Engaging it is, do I believe that it's going to get me to my result? You can simply remember this as PACE, P-A-C-E, the simple way of looking at how to design your levers. Now let's have a look at some levers, right? Let's say I work for a company that's making some material, let's say FMCG kind of company. And the big rock I take is that I want to increase volume from 250 metric tons to 375 metric tons by such and such time. That's my big rock. What are some of the levers? When will I know whether I was able to increase volume from 250 metric tons to 375 metric tons? I will know that only in December 2015. By which time it's too late to do anything about it. So when should I do something about it? Before December 2015, which is November, October, September, August, whatever it is. Now, what are those kind of things? What are the things that will help me increase volume? Those should be my levers, and they should be 4 things that we talked about. 4 things that we talked about levers: predictive, actionable, controllable, engaging. Now let's look at the levers. Conduct 3 outlocation retail visits per sales representative every week. That's one lever that we've taken here. Is it an action? Yes, it is. Is it controllable at a sales rep level? Yes, yes, it is. Is it indicative or predictive that we will achieve the result? Well, we can try. But the good thing is that if we try for 3 weeks and we find that it's not working, we can change the lever. And that's the real, that's the real big thing about this. You can change the lever. Nobody's going to allow you to change this. You're a big rock. You don't change your annual targets every now and then. But you can definitely change what you're doing, which makes this a real living mechanism and says, at the heart of this process is if I can keep the levers, things that are, that are leading to my result. And if they're not, then I can change them. Then it gives you a great sense of control and predictability, predictability to the results that you're trying to do. It's the same for, here are a couple of promos that are running. I mean, in my experience, one of the things I've seen with, say, insurance companies or FMCG companies is they run promos, but a lot of the feet on the street who are actually doing their selling don't even know that such a promo is running, and the timeline for the promo expires by the time they figure out something like that. It happens so maddeningly often. It's crazy. And so unless we bring the focus of our own field staff to, to go and do this kind of stuff with the retailers who are eventually going to take it to the field, we may not get the best out of it. So is it predictive? Is it actionable? Is it controllable? All of those things. And if you start seeing a little bit of result from this, it immediately starts becoming engaging as well. Here's an example from insurance, say life insurance. So I want to increase the distribution of new life advisors from 110 to 230 by so-and-so time. Right? That's a goal. Now I can keep looking at that goal and hoping that something will happen. But let me take PACE type of levers, predictive, actionable, controllable, engaging levers, and say, I want to ensure that I'm going to meet 3 people who will give me the names of potential agents. So first thing is per RDM, which is a distribution manager, I want to make sure that I meet 3 people every week who will give me additional names for people who I can appoint as life advisors. Next thing is that those people will give me at least 15 names of potential life advisors. And the third thing I have to do is before I employ the person as a life advisor, I need to put them through some things, through a test and various other things that's called a screening. So I will conduct at least 2 screenings per week per distribution manager. if I do these three things, I will have 15 people that I will put through 2 screenings per week. And if my conversion ratio is, say, 2 people I can appoint per week, and there are 52 weeks in the year, that means I can appoint 104. 110 plus 104 is 214. Chalo, maybe you have to do a little bit more work on this, but at least if you do these three things on a regular, disciplined kind of basis, we know that it's going to lead to the result. If, however, something doesn't work, then you can pick up something else and change one of the levers and see how it takes you forward. So that's the second part, but it's that's part two. How breaking down the work from big rocks to levers, and this is one of the big engagement strategies that you can have, because that suddenly starts making the work look much simpler to the staff of an organization. And if a few leveraged activities can move my big rocks, then I can stay in control. I don't have to work 12 hours a day anymore. I just have to still work only 10 hours a day, but by doing some highly focused activities towards a highly focused result. And if I can find half an hour in a day to do that work, I can still take care of all the whirlwinds that are happening around me for the rest of the 7.5 hours. That's how you execute with excellence in the face of the whirlwind. Now, there's another element that makes it even more controlling. We say, for instance, if you look at these levers, we are saying do something per week, and we are assuming that if you do each of these things every week, you will get the result. However, not every week is the same. You cannot do the same set of things in Diwali week as you would do in, say, a week that is in the middle of April. Why? Because Diwali week is holiday week. And therefore, even though you have taken specific goals or big rocks to which you have attached specific levers, for those levers, it's a good idea to say, okay, I'm supposed to do these things every week, but what specifically am I going to do this week? So here's an example. It's okay to say, I have a big rock, and to move the big rock, I will have to move the lever. But or rather, for the big rock, I need a lever. But you need to specifically commit that I'm going to push the lever. Only then the lever will work on the big rock. Therefore, it's commitments of action that you need to make for your levers every week. Now, the relationship is as follows. You make commitment of action every week, which is related to a lever. If you do those commitments of action, the chances are that the lever will move. And if the lever moves, the chances are that your big rock will move. That's the relationship. Why do you want this relationship? Because if you keep looking at the big rock and saying, I need to move this, it's too scary and too complex. You break it down into what are the 2 or 3 things that you need to do on a regular basis in a disciplined manner. It becomes simpler. You break each of those 2 or 3 things down into specific activities you're going to do this week. It makes it actionable, and it puts it completely in your control. Therefore, you get to a model where you say, if I do these 2-3 activities this week, they will have an impact on the big rock. That's the reason why it needs to be broken down in this fashion. So, for instance, we had taken this increased volume from 250 metric tons to 375 metric tons as a big rock, and we had taken 3 levers for this. Conduct 3 out-location retail visits per sales rep every week. Now, what would be a commitment of action for this lever? You look at the box on top. It says, meet Chandigarh, Gurdaspur, and Jalandhar retailers. You can make it even more specific. Meet Chandigarh, Gurdaspur, and Jalandhar retailers and tell them this, or make them do this. So this week, the activity I have is to travel to Chandigarh, Gurdaspur, and Jalandhar and meet the retailers there and do some specific activity, because I want to move a lever that says conduct 3 out-location retail visits per sales rep every week, because that's going to move my goal of increasing volume from 250 metric tons to 375 metric tons. That's the relationship. So if I have to present 1 for 3 volume pack offer to 40 retailers per week, which is your second lever, then one of the things you could say, this week I will train the distributor's sales team, and you can name the distributor right there, saying this distributor sales team, I will train. Why? Because then that sales team will go and train 40 retailers. Right? Or I want to increase X by 4 volume pack retailer billing. Some promotion is going on, but I want to do this with 5 retailers per week. So who are the 5 retailers where I will do this week? Sonnet, Targas, Winsome, ABC, and Rockets. So now all of a sudden I know that these are the things, these are the most important things I need to do this week. Finished. And that's what gives me visibility, predictability, and control. That's the relationship. Now, we need to keep people engaged not only by telling them or rather helping them understand what needs to be done and breaking that down into specific weekly activities. We also need to measure those things. Now, most organizations will say, yeah, we do that. We have our review meetings, but the challenge with review meetings is that we always look at a report, and that report has an incredible amount of detail in it. The other problem with that report is that that report is about the past. So it looks back, right? It's a detailed drill down of what has happened in the past. It investigates what are the reasons and it creates some learning. But the challenge with reviews is this. Reviews are about things that have happened in the past. Execution, unfortunately, is something that happens in the future. And so how does the review data that you're looking at in the report tell you what you need to do in the future? And that's the reason we say, to inspire action through progress, let's look at some dashboards, right, and make them inspiring. This is a bit like, the batting averages and analysis of Virat Kohli's Test cricket records. So over the last 5, 6, 7 years that he's been playing Test cricket, this is what he's done. But that's fine. That's not what Virat Kohli wants to look at when he's batting in the third session of the 5th day, trying to chase down a big score from the competition. He's not interested in how many times he's been out LBW or how many times he's been stumped or run out. What he's interested in, how many overs are left and how many runs do I need to get. That's what's going to tell him what to do. How many times he was LBW and run out is not going to tell him what he should do right now. That's the difference between reviews and execution. So you could, very often look at inspiring dashboards like sports, like scoreboards in a sports arena, because they look ahead. They basically tell you what you need to do. They share the most important insights. Only so much time to go, light is fading or not fading, so many runs to get, so many wickets gone. And therefore, as you keep going, ball by ball, over by over, it drives action. Supposing in the next 5 overs, you need to achieve 8 runs per over, but in the current over, you only achieved 4 runs. That means in the next 4 overs, your run rate is going to be more than 8. Right? It's definitely going to be 9 or 9 point something. So it tells you what you need to do in the next 4 overs. And that's why we say this drives results. Now, what are inspiring dashboards? Right? This is what inspiring dashboards will basically do. They have, let's say, the most important information that you need to know about your big rock. In other words, what's your target for the full year? What's your target up to now? And what is your actual achievement up to now? I just need to know 3 things. I don't need to know any more. Right? If I want to drill down, I can put those same 3 things in about the levers. And in the levers, I can say, in my big rock, these are the 3 numbers. In my levers also, what is the number of times in the year that I said I will execute this lever? How many times should I have executed it by now? And what is the actual number of times that I've executed it? Which will clearly give you a picture saying I'm ahead or I'm behind. And when teams look at these kind of scoreboards, they, and these scoreboards or these dashboards are highly visible and splattered all over the walls in your office. It drives a kind of team dynamic that's absolutely amazing. I can give you a classic example from my own career. At one time, I was running a telephone-based sales team of about 140 people. This was while I was at Microsoft. I had been given a few $1 million, $3 million, saying run this operation in $3 million. We want to expand our market reach. Okay, but you spend $3 million. For every dollar that you spend, please give us $20 million in revenue, which means by the end of the year, spend $3 million and give us back $60 million in revenue. So we started working on it, and after about 2 or 3 months, I realized that our field sales team was asking our inside sales team to do all sorts of stuff, which was not helping them achieve these numbers. We were not totally clear about what exactly is the purpose of the inside sales team. Is it to create pipeline? Is it to find new customers? Is it to engage the channel? Is it to set up meetings for field sales? Is it to help field sales generate sales reports? So we sat down and said, listen, let's get clear about this. And we said our job is to deliver 60 million in revenue. Therefore, the primary objective should be outreach to customers and generating a pipeline. And then we have to measure it. And then we put up a dashboard on the wall. It was a single office, so it was simpler, of course. On the wall, we put up a dashboard. For each of the regional teams, we said, what was your target on Monday and how much did you achieve? What is your target on Tuesday and how much did you achieve? And it was there for everybody to see. Initially, there was a little bit of a murmur and people were uncomfortable with it because there was too much transparency in the whole process. But then it became so competitive and people became so excited about it, and the healthy competition that I'm talking about was so much that we ended up actually giving back the company about $142 million in impacted revenue for the $3 million that they had given us to spend. So we gave them nearly 30 times, or 28 times of the money that they. Sorry, not 28. What's 150 divided by 3? It's 50. We gave them nearly 43, 44 times of the money that they were, $44 per dollar that we spent, as opposed to the $20 that they wanted. This is the kind of impact that that these scoreboards can have. It seems very, it seems very unlikely and a very simple thing to do, and it is, but its impact is really dramatic. Because when people keep score, they definitely behave differently, right? So I think that's that's the third engagement model that I will. Three things on engagement: work breakdown into levers, and then weekly commitments of action against each lever, and then a measurement of how the scoreboard is moving. That's that's visible and maintained by the team in the office. So you got focus, you got engagement, right? This is when people will start seeing the results and asking all the right questions, and it motivates teams very dramatically to do even better than than what they've been doing in the past. It's a technique that's proven to work. Let's look at discipline. So now you have dashboards, you have a clear focus. Or let me start the other way. You have a clear focus for the company. It's called the must-win battle. You have a clear focus for each of the individuals. Each of them have 2 to 3 big rocks each that are directly connected with contributing to the must-win battle, either directly, which is what happens for the top level management, or indirectly, because at the bottom of the organization, your big rocks are connected to your manager, whose big rocks are connected to his manager, whose big rocks are connected to his manager, and that is eventually connected to the must-win battle. So you get the focus. The next thing you do is engage people. First, of course, by writing a great statement and a motivating statement of your big rock. Then by breaking the work down, then by giving them their big rocks and helping them clearly understand what the most important things are. Then by breaking those big rocks into manageable units of work using the 80-20 principle. Then by saying, okay, in these units of work, what exactly am I going to do every week? And then by displaying what is their performance on the dashboards. Now that you have the dashboards, you can start driving some discipline. Now, the whole idea here is, let's make some high impact commitments every week. Commit clearly and then deliver completely. So we always encourage 2 to 3. There's no need to make 20 commitments every week. There's going to be plenty of other things that are going to keep hitting you in the face. Employees will keep quitting, customers will keep screaming, deliveries will keep getting messed up. All that will keep happening, and you're going to have to fight those fires. Therefore, as far as your most important goal or your must-win battle or your big rock is concerned, every week make 2 to 3 commitments that you're absolutely and totally going to deliver with excellence. Right? Don't take more than that. If you fail, it becomes very demotivating. Right? Commit every week, and then every week have a conversation, a brief one, maybe 10-15 minutes at every level of the organization. So level 4, the frontline managers and the individual contributors have this conversation. And I'll tell you what the conversation is in a bit. After they have completed their conversation, the level 3s have it. Then these guys, the frontline managers, become participants, and the middle level managers have their meetings. And then the second level, where the middle level managers become participants and the top level managers become are having this meeting. And then finally, the top level managers are having their meeting with the business unit leader. Now, what are they discussing in this meeting? I would say just keep it short. Here are the 4 or 5 things that you should discuss. no more than that. What were the commitments of action last week, and have they been completed? That's the first thing. What is the impact on the dashboard? That's the second thing. What are the successes and how are we celebrating them, even if it's a clap or a pat on the back and everybody stands up and acknowledges, or it's an email, it doesn't matter. Let's share those successes, because again, I'm saying, we live in a world where attention spans are very, very short. People do not want to wait for 6 months or 1 year to see whether they're being impactful, at least the good ones. So you've got to keep telling people whether they're doing well or they're not doing well on a regular basis. And that's the reason, you've got to shorten the cycle in which those celebrations and successes are shared. Let people seek help if they've not been able to keep the commitments that they made last week. And let people in the team stand up and say, right, I'm going to help you to achieve this. Many times it's simply about getting help from somebody else who's in another team and whose manager you're not able to access. So when you go through the cascade of meetings and you discuss this with your manager and that person's manager are going to be together in the up level meeting in the same week. So the issue, gets escalated to the top of the organization very, very quickly. And then finally, commit the actions that you're going to take next week. So report back on last week's commitments of actions, review the impact on the dashboard, celebrate success, seek help if it's required, and commit new actions for the next week. That's the purpose, and that's the model that we want followed in each of the meetings that we spoke about. Right? And never forget to follow through. I have seen far too many times when people say, okay, this meeting is going to happen on a Monday. We will update the dashboard on the Monday and we'll talk about it on Monday. And between Monday and the next Monday, we will forget it and we will keep doing whatever it is that we've been doing. That's just a bad idea. And therefore, it's important for the leaders to play the game visibly and play it by the rules. Right? It's important to keep reminding people in the teams about what the big picture is. Right? It's folly to believe that just because you are committed and just because you understand what needs to be done, therefore other people also do it. They may not. People in your team may not think that something is as important to them as it is to you, and therefore it's important to keep on reiterating the big picture. Of course, if they do something, then they want other people to hear it regularly. They want to be recognized for it regularly. So please follow through. If you do employ something like this for execution, please do employ something like this, because eventually it's these three things that are going to drive the results in the organization. The first is sharpening the focus. Don't try to do everything with excellence. You're going to have to do everything, I agree. But pick out those things that you want to do with excellence. You want to execute with excellence, one or two things. Engage your stakeholders by by getting their participation into a discussion, saying, okay, if these are the 2-3 big things, what do you think your goals should be? How are you going to break that work down? And what are the things that you're going to do this week, next week, and then eventually maintain the discipline of meeting every week at every level in the organization and saying, hey, if we committed something last week, did we do it? And if we did it, what's the impact on the scoreboard? And if there's no impact, should we be changing these things? These are the three big pillars of achieving excellence in the execution of any project that you might want to take up. It works in sales, it works in operations, because it's principles based. It's just very, very fundamental. The principles being, if you're clear about what you want to do, if you're committed to what you want to do, if you can break down whatever you're clear and committed about into specific and manageable work units, then the likelihood is that you will have much higher level of accountability to achieve that result, and that you will work much more with each other, because all of you are working towards the same goal, as opposed to different people in an organization working on different goals. So, folks, that's what I had to say. That's the content I have on an execution model that's proven and principles based. If you have any questions, I'd be very happy to take them now. Are there no questions?